And I wanted to take a moment to welcome everybody on Facebook Live and people watching in YouTube down the road to our Sunday service. So this month we have talked about how money and finances work in your life. And between Reverend Lane and our guest speaker, Ron Fox, I have been more and more intimidated to prepare my talk because I feel like they just covered so much this month. They've been talking about how they see money working in your life as an energy force. They've been talking about our relationships to money and love. And they've been talking about abundance. They've been talking about the energetic nature of money. I've heard talks this month about the law of circulation and the law of abundance. I've heard us contemplate our faith and think about giving and receiving both. And I kept asking myself, oh my gosh, what is there to talk about? But I know that part of my faith says that what I need to say will be given to me. And so I kept with the home office suggestion of "Do Take My Pie" as a title for today's talk, having no idea what I was going to say, but just knowing that it was going to come to me. And I did, as I was searching through the internet looking for inspiration, I did find a story that I enjoyed very much. It was from Aesop, and it was published by the Library of Congress, and it's called The Miser. And this is Aesop's story. Aesop says that there was a miser who had buried his gold in a secret location in his garden. But every day he would go to that spot and he would dig up his gold and he would touch it and feel it and make sure that it was really there. That brought him a great sense of comfort. And he had done this so often that a passerby noticed. And sure enough, late in the night, that thief tiptoed into the garden and took away the gold. So the next morning when the miser goes out to visit with his gold, all of a sudden the gold is gone, and he cries out in his despair, "Oh no, my gold, my gold!" And another passerby, another stranger, hears him crying out and stops to see what has happened. And the passerby says, "Your gold in that hole? Why did you even put it there? Why did you not keep it in the house where you could easily get to it, so buying things and using it?" "Buying things," screamed the miser. "Why, I never touched the gold. I didn't think of spending it. I wanted to just gather it up." And the stranger picked up a large stone and threw it into the hole and said, "Well, if that's the case, why don't you cover up this stone and you can come visit it every day." And Aesop's moral to the story is a possession is worth no more than the use we make of it. So I was reminded that this idea of giving away and making the most of our money is not new. If you don't realize this, Aesop lived, we think, around 3,000 years ago. So this is not a new idea. And later last week, I had further inspiration as Spirit spoke to me in that quiet way it usually does, with just a little aha in my gut. As I was preparing for last week when I was doing the reading as a practitioner, I was in the same Science of Mind magazine Ellen brought up, and a story that was written by Reverend Ryan Alexander. It was called Collective Abundance, and that spoke to me greatly. And so I want to base my sermon today on the writings of this reverend and the idea of how can we move ourselves, our center, and the world forward in this abundance consciousness. How can we live with enthusiasm and confidence to tell the world, please take a piece of my pie, and to pass it out willingly and lovingly. And to do this knowing that Spirit is the source of everything in my life. And to do this knowing that Spirit will always provide for me and for you. So the top of that article was a headline that had the Center for Spiritual Living's mantra, "A world that works for all." And this is a phrase that has resonated with me for quite some time. I want to live in a world where poverty and sickness are not seen. A world where equity and opportunities exist for all. And giving away a piece of my pie is part of what it takes to get the world to look this way. Our CSL Global Vision states in part, we envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life. A world where this kinship with all life prospers and connects through the guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. It further says, we envision a world where personal responsibility joins with the social consciousness in every area of the political, corporate, academic, and social sectors, providing sustainable structures to further their emerging global consciousness. That's what we as a community have decided is our mission. And that's what I want to encourage you to take some action towards today. For that's what I want from this world. That's what I want to see. I want to see this in my backyard. I want to see this in Tampa Bay and our country and our world, everywhere. And I am not Pollyanna. I am not naive. I realize when I look at my news feed or I look at my life or social media, when I look around my community, I know we're not there yet. And I know that that's a fact of life. But what I reject is the belief that we will never be there, or that it is impossible to be there. For I know that there is an abundant amount of resources in this world for all of us. It's about spreading them out. And I realize that our culture historically in America has been built on the idea of individuality and the idea of capitalism and competition. And while that has certainly built us up to a wonderful country, I think that our country needs to shift. I think we need to start valuing cooperation. I think we need to start valuing the collective need of all. So I'm not advocating, I want to be very clear, I'm not saying give all your money and go live in a commune. I'm not saying that we need to embrace communism as the best way to spread our wealth out. But I do believe that each of us has a piece of spirit inside of us, what we call the soul so often. And I believe that your soul has come to this planet and come into this body and this time for a reason. That your initial home and family life are not an accident. Your soul has chosen these challenges and these issues that you have in your life. Your soul chooses to experience humanity exactly as your life has worked out for you right here, right now. For there are no mistakes in God's work. We also are given the responsibility to choose our path in life. It is up to each of us to determine what this human experience is going to look like for us. And I'm not trying to tell you you should or shouldn't do anything, because I believe that's up to each one of us to decide that path. But I am asking you, please take some time to examine your beliefs, to examine how your actions in the world support those beliefs. I am asking you to increase your commitment, to use your finances to help facilitate us towards reaching that world that's going to work for all of us. And I'm asking you to do that from a place of love, knowing that love is the underlying principle that guides all of us. For if the things we've been talking about this month are true, and if you truly believe them, shouldn't they be a guiding force to create a collective awareness where we implement the ideas of abundance? Where we bring in the idea of circulation, knowing that the more we send out, the more we get back. So let's be real. It takes money to make the world a better place. It takes money to spread their sources out. And ask yourself, how am I committing my funds in this regard? And I realize this might be a bit of a trigger for you. I'd like to acknowledge for many years, my husband was not a big fan of going to church because he felt growing up the church was always sticking their hands in their pockets and trying to take money out of the wallet. And he felt that it was a huge issue for him. And so I would just want to be really clear. I'm not trying to bully anyone. I'm not trying to guilt anyone. I'm asking you to listen to that small piece of wisdom inside of you that tells you, yes, this is what is important. And then to take action on whatever you decide for yourself. Now, I sure hope that Center for Spiritual Living is something that you value and that you think is helping make the world a better place. And as Reverend Lane talked about, we had a meeting last week where we shared that most months we bring in a little less money than we spend out. And it's not a huge amount, but certainly if you see fit for yourself to increase your giving to our center, that's a wonderful thing. But certainly there's a lot of different ways that you can use your finances to help the world. I know for myself, this looks like giving a small amount every month to nonprofits whose missions I agree with. It looks like putting a bequeath into my will for this center when I pass. It looks like hearing finances of issues of people and individuals in the world and helping them out on a one-on-one basis. And I know for you, you have to find what's best for you. But take a moment to think about, how do you financially help the world to be a better place that works for all? And now imagine yourself stretching that. What more can you do? And if you don't think you can spare another dollar, this is a shameless plug for practitioners, because we can help you deepen that belief in abundance, right? And in the meantime, if you can't stand the thought of spreading more money, certainly you can spend more time helping those places that are making the world a better place. So I do get that this is a delicate balancing act, and we all have to decide where we stand on it. I can picture a whole sermon talking about balance around this topic. And I'm not trying to say that spending money on something that's purely hedonistic and self-benefiting is a horrible idea. A couple weeks ago, we went to a lavish dinner to celebrate my husband's birthday, and I have no guilt about it. Moderation is the key for me, and I hope it is for you. For each one of us has to find this balance. But I can tell you this, one of my deepest beliefs is that we are here on earth to experience life, to learn, and to grow. Each one of us, I believe, is on our own individualized path of evolution. And our founder, Ernest Holmes, called this idea staying open at the top, ever willing to learn more, ever willing to shift your beliefs and your actions. And if you've read any of his works, you can see where his writing has changed over the years as he wrote prolifically. And therefore, I groan inside whenever someone mentions a social media post from years ago or something that someone written in their teenage years, because I know for myself, who I am today is very different from who I was in my teenage years. It's very different from 20 years ago. I'm a different person from 2 weeks ago, from yesterday. And so as my growth continues, I encourage you to focus on your growth. Just a few weeks ago, I was walking into a dollar store, and I saw a lady sitting on the ground near the entrance, and my perception was that she was perhaps homeless. And so as I walked up to her, I engaged her in conversation, and just to acknowledge her existence, because my belief is that a lot of homeless people feel that they're invisible, and I wanted to show her that I saw her. And as I walked in the store, I was like mentally patting myself on the back, because 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I was super, super shy, much more introverted than I am now. And I was really quick to think of the worst case scenario whenever I thought about doing something. And so I was patting myself on the back on how I've changed over the years, that I've been able to let go of that fear and just embrace humanity and however it shows up. So that's how I grew. As I was walking out, another man was walking in, and he said hi to the woman, and he said to her, "Is there anything I can get for you while I'm inside the store?" And I went, "Oh." And I didn't even hear her answer, because I kept on walking, but I thought, I've got room for growth, don't I? And actually, driving in here today, I was thinking about these words, and I remembered a couple years ago, I had a teenager living with me named Kendra, and she joined us for service, or a Saturday event, I don't even remember what it was, and we stopped off at Wawa on the way home. And we got in and got some drinks and some snacks, and as we came out, Kendra noticed that there was a person sitting at a table eating ketchup packets. And this is a 17-year-old who left her house at 15. And has had a rough time supporting herself. I'll spare the details. I didn't even notice this person. But Kendra stopped and said, "Are you hungry? Can I buy you something?" And Kendra walked the man in and gave them money, because Kendra's been around the block. She did not want to buy drugs and alcohol. So Kendra gave the money to a cashier and said, "I would like to treat this person. Could you please ring up whatever they bring up?" Right? And that happened 2 years ago, and I didn't learn the lesson then. So the universe brought it to me again. So hopefully I'm paying attention this time. But I certainly know that my growth continues. And I am humble enough to acknowledge that I have room for improvement. And I think that stands the same for all of us, that we are all evolving, we are all getting better. And so in the meantime, as we all are in that individual path, I am here to stand firm and knowing for all of us that each of you has the potential to nudge the world closer to being a world that works for everyone in your own unique way. So thank you for listening.